Right guys, this short video is all about helping people who are brand new to lifting gain an understanding of where their focus and attention needs to be through the first couple of months of lifting. So what they've got to remember is that as soon as they step foot in the gym and they start lifting weights, that's going to be a pretty big stimulus to them. So they're going to gain muscle and they're going to develop a little bit of strength by literally going in the gym and throwing a few weights about. Because the stimulus is so novel, literally anything will suffice for the time being. But that being said, the focus for a beginner or a newbie lifter should also be on generally becoming more efficient at moving their body and moving their body through very basic patterns of movement. So a squat, a hip hinge, a single leg movement, a bridge, the ability to brace the trunk, an upper body pull, an upper body push. We want to know that they're becoming more efficient at generally just moving their body. The more times you do something and you do it in a way which is or the way you're supposed to do it, the more that pattern becomes ingrained in your nervous system, and it begins to store and recognize that pattern. Essentially, you're becoming more efficient at doing that movement. And that for a beginner is where most of their strength gains are made. They're simply learning how to move their body in a more efficient way. How do we get them better at generally just moving their body? Practice. We do it specifically, so whatever task we choose for the day, so a squat or a hip hinge, we need to drill it, and we need to do it frequently enough so that these things become second nature. The more times you do something, the more times you've got an opportunity to practice and master the art of doing something. It's all about improving efficiency of movement. So the next stage for a beginner is basically adding in some additional resistance to the movements that they're learning and becoming more efficient at. Now, this obviously isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's good for any lifter. We want to know that we can overload lifts so that we have more potential to gain strength and increase muscle mass. So what we need to be careful of with a beginner is that any additional load which we do give them, it doesn't alter the mechanics in the slightest. We want to know that every repetition looks the same so that whilst they're still learning to become efficient at the lifts, just because we provide a bit of additional resistance, it doesn't change anything. They're still developing that awareness and that understanding of how to move their body. So the other point I need to stress is that they need to stay away from failure, because obviously this would encourage that breakdown of form to happen. And the more they go closer to failure, the more likely they are to become less efficient at movements, because the body will always seek the path of less resistance, and that's generally what happens during failure. So the body will cheat its way out of appropriate movement, and it will find the quickest and easiest path up or down, whatever the movement may be. And obviously we don't want this to happen to a beginner. It's all about them building awareness and an understanding of how to move their body, and then generally recruit muscle to move a certain load, but it doesn't alter the mechanics of the movement. So the last point to make from a beginner's point of view is that training frequency is your friend, and you want to take advantage of that. So as we stressed in the point before where we said we're not taking a lot of things to failure or anywhere near failure, that means that it should be easier to recover between training bouts, which means that hopefully we can train more often and have more opportunities to practice these skills and these movements against resistance. So, training movements 2, 3, maybe even 4 times a week with appropriate load so that it doesn't change the mechanics of the movement. It means that you'll likely be able to get through more work than you could if you practiced this movement in one session but took it to failure and beyond. The amount of work you could get through in 2 or 3 sessions was going to far outweigh that one session. So there we have it. We've covered some basic points for newbies and people who are brand new to lifting to focus on. So remember, it's all about becoming more efficient at basic movement patterns. We want to know that whenever we add some load to that movement or to those movements, that nothing alters, so the mechanics stay the same, rep after rep, set after set. We want to stay well away from failure. And then the last point is that you want to use frequency to your advantage, so that we want to know that we can train something frequently enough that it gives you the opportunity to practice that skill and to create a training stimulus from it also. There we have it, guys. I hope this video has helped. As ever, please feel free to leave us some questions. Until next time, stay strong